lot of people ask me how I get my tin or my aluminium from my cans and get it nice and flat before I start making things. And as you know, I've made loads of things using the tin, and it saves putting it in the bin. So what I thought I'd do was show you exactly what I do. Now, it might be wise when you're doing this to use some protective gloves. So far, I've never cut myself, which is useful. And actually, it doesn't leave them too sharp. Now, what I'm going to do to start with is make a slit in the can, both ends, just above the lid or the base. Now, I always keep these bases because I find they're really useful for things. I use them for little paint pots and different things like that. And then all I do is I slip my scissors in there. But if you don't want to do it with scissors, you can do it with the knife like this and go around. It just tends to make the first cut a little bit more jagged. Don't push too hard in the middle of the can while you're doing this, because if not, what you'll do is you'll flatten it. And it doesn't take long to do quite a few. I've got quite a few cans here. I'm getting short on it now, so it's really useful to do them all at once. Okay, so you got a bit there that's a bit jagged, and those little jagged sharp bits can stick in your finger. So be careful of those. So now what I'll do is I'll make a decision of where I want to cut down this can, if I'm going to do it with scissors. And I'm going to cut it down there, because sometimes I like to use the coloured side with all the pattern on it. And there we go. But what we've got is we've got a roly-poly bit, and it's quite difficult if you don't know how to get that to lay nice and flat. Before I do anything, what I do is I even these edges up, and then I put all this in the recycling bin. So that's giving us a nice bit here, and that's not sharp at all. But still be careful with it. But again, like I said, it's all roly-poly. Now these bits, I go around, I trim these up like that. And then I use that indent there for inks and different bits and pieces. I find they're really useful. I'm sure there is something that you could do with these. I do keep these tabs because they can come in handy quite a lot for different things. So that's all the rubbish that we get from that. Well, that's those all cut and ready now. I'm going to lay a couple of towels down on my wooden top here, and I'm going to show you two ways of doing this. One using an iron. I'm using my Cricut little tiny iron here, but you can use a household iron, that's no problem. Now I'm making sure I've got no creases in my towels, because if you've got lumps and bumps in your towels, what'll happen is you'll get lumps and bumps in your pieces of metal. And then if I'm doing it by hand like this, I tend to only do 3 or 4 at a time. But my other method, you can do probably 8 or 10. Now these are old towels, so I'm not worried about these in the slightest either. They're what I have in my craft room. And then I put towel over the top, keeping them as flat as possible. And then I go over while my iron is on its hottest setting and just iron this. If you've got a bigger iron, you can just put it over the top of it and make sure you're not burning the towel. With this small one, I'll do this for about 3 minutes. And then once it's done, I'll have a look at it. And if they need a couple of minutes more or 30 seconds more, then I can easily do that. But don't forget, these will get very hot now because you're heating that metal up. So these have had about 60 seconds. And as you can see, they've already started to flatten out. And what I do is then I turn them over. Now, if you haven't got a towel, you can always use a piece of greaseproof paper over the top. It's really just to protect your iron against any of those colours or anything that are on there. And then go over it with that in the same way. The iron method, I find, doesn't get them completely flat, but it does get them really good. If you haven't got the other method, then it does really work. And then once I've finished ironing them and I've got them lovely and warm, well, very hot actually, don't touch them with your bare hands at this stage. I then pop that away, and then while they're cooling down, I put a brick or a weight on them to keep them nice and flat. We'll leave those to cool down and I'll show you the next method. Well, they're all cool now and I can take my bricks off. And as we can see, they're not springing back up. And that's what I mean. You don't get them perfectly flat, but you do get them a lot flatter than what you thought. Now, if you store them under a weight like this for a couple of days, it also helps. So let me show you the other method. So this method uses my heat press. I will definitely put a towel on that, like so. And I'll give that a bit of a press first, so it's nice and flat. There we go. So that's nice and flat now. And we'll leave those 4 there. And I've got my heat press set to 400 Fahrenheit. But if you want it higher than that, you can have it higher than that. But I wouldn't go massively higher. And this time I only use the baking parchment. Being careful not to burn yourself on this. Get that under there. And then I'll start it and I'll give it 90 seconds to start with. And it ticks down there. You can't see, it's too bright today. There we go. Now I can lift that up, pull that out. Okay, and they're still quite hot and they're still quite turned. So I know I need to put them in for a little bit longer. But this time I'll turn them over. I'll give them the 90 seconds on this side. Now, if you want to tape these down, you could tape these down using the heat resistance tape. So I'm going to give that another 90 seconds on that side. And as you can see, they have already started to now get nice and flat. So what I'll do is I'll put them in again on the other side for another 90 seconds. Well, these have had their last lot of time and they've lovely and cooled down now. And look how beautiful and flat they are. And this is why I like this method much better. They flatten out really well in comparison to these ones, and in comparison to running them down the sides of something. They've got excellent, and even that one that was all crinkled up is nice and flat. Well, there we go, that's the difference. Those ones were done with an iron, those ones were done with a heat press, but they're both workable and I think they give a great result. The other way is the heat press does nothing to the actual picture as well, so if you want to use that picture you can. Quick thank you to everyone that bought me a coffee last month. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you buying me a coffee. And if you'd like to buy me a coffee just to say thank you for any of my videos and help support this channel, which is greatly appreciated, then the link for that is in the description below. Watch out for the video that will be coming up in the next couple of weeks where I show you how you can make some amazing things and jewellery using these sheets of aluminium that we've got from cans. It's a great way of upcycling stuff and earning a profit. Don't forget, hit that like button, really helps this video to get out there, and also hit that subscribe button, and be sure to check out the video that will go coming up next. Take care, enjoy your crafting, bye.